It's September, and you know what that means. Halloween season is finally upon us. Like any good Eldritch horror, I'm one of those people that immediately starts planning for spooky themed stuff the moment that it gets colder. To start off with this perfect time of year, I've decided to revive my character design videos, and today we are turning random Pinterest images and boards that you guys have sent me into cryptids. Let's get this show on the road. I've been calling this one the Tidemother. The images I've used to make here are here, suggested by our lovely Naz from the Patron Discord. Eldritch jellyfish, especially when you combine them with the thought of mermaids, is just perfect. It's one of my favorite character concepts. She's definitely a cross between some sort of deep sea jellyfish and a kraken. Most terrifying out of the bunch here, if I'm honest. I would say her vibes are a mix of some Cthulhu-like creature and Calypso from Pirates of the Caribbean. There's someone out there that broke her heart, and therefore she must terrorize the area that she now calls home. She's never taken a true human form. She's too good for that. There was so much time spent on her tentacles. I really tried to make them aesthetically pleasing and look super heavy at the same time. That probably makes it hard to swim, but you know what? This is a fantasy design. We do what we want here. The top half of her design is based off of those really frilly jellyfish. I'm honestly not sure which ones they're called, but they almost have dress-like hems to their stingers, which I thought would be a super good vibe for her veil. To go with the Calypso aesthetic, I tried to bring in the thought of like a mourning veil or a bride-like veil. Perhaps she was left at the Eldritch wedding altar by some pirate that found her too terrifying. And while her story has turned into legend and people still go out to fish or sail, there's still a superstition that if you commit crimes against your spouse, she'll crawl out of the sea to get you. Her hair is a combo of the little hands from the Blasphemous Blade in Elden Ring, and the concept of those glass sea creatures where you can kinda see the nervous system, especially since jellyfish are invertebrates. She's just kind of made of jelly with a weird pulsating creature within her that bursts out from the top of her head into weird little grabby hands. Not unlike those slappy, sticky hands we all used to play with as children. You know, try to get to stick to the wall and the ceiling. I bet our parents loved that. I wanted the hair to also be a super neon and saturated color as opposed to the rest of the body for a couple reasons. One, because creatures with super neon colors like those rainforest frogs tend to look like that because they're dangerous to other creatures or want to look like they're dangerous to other creatures. And two, because it draws a lot of attention towards the aspect of the character design and to the face, which I know is non-existent, but most of what I want people to look at is within the main body and where the face would be. It makes sense somehow. Of course, we gotta end off this design with lots of sparkles and a glow within the body, as well as making her look like she's floating deep within the ocean. I do genuinely love this design, and I think if I did anything different, I would give her smaller details to make her look less sleek, but I still think this works really well. Our second design was a combo of suggestions from Meg and Laura that you can find on the screen here. I'm really happy with their face. It came out perfectly, if I'm honest, though I will note that I heavily struggled with this design. They were first a knight and now have come around to being some sort of mage or a librarian. Either way, there's some sort of cursed creature that I wanted to have a monstrous form, and I did sketch it out, but I'm not that good at monster designs yet, and whatever this was just wasn't working out. So it's not scrapped, but it will forever sit in whips, I think. Originally, I wanted a vibe of a chivalrous knight or some sort of scholar that lives deep within the woods or high up in some sort of decrepit wizard tower. People come visit for help. I think they give prophecies or fight off monsters, and their more actual cryptid form would have been that weird bird thing which the town calls the Hatchling. This almost divine-like creature doesn't know what happens when they turn into the Hatchling. All they know is that they come back in a not so great condition and someone has been lost from the village. To give the vibe that they're a scholarly mage, I gave them some nice long robes with poofy wizard sleeves that make it easy to move around in and try to convey a calm but still somewhat cold demeanor in the way that they hold their hands, almost like they're just passively listening to someone tell them their woes. Their color palette comes from an image I found on Pinterest, but it is heavily inspired by the colors of raven's wings as well as colors more associated with winter and the night sky. I did commit a grievous this in by coloring their boots brown and the rest of their design a more cool tone. My husband did help me correct there. Thank God. While on Pinterest, I also had this idea to color the inside of their hair a lighter shade of purple to give a sort of glow effect or more ethereal vibe. I really liked how that turned out. Of course, I had to give them a nice shade of purple blush and end off this design with a bunch of glittery freckles as well as some nice stars to give a more divine feel to them. I think if I were to revisit them, I would try to make their monster design and really take my time making them look good. But overall, I think this is pretty solid. This very tall boy is called Brother Quiet and was made from suggestions by Jack. I have no idea why I called him Brother Quiet, but I am obsessed with priests and priests in general, so we'll just keep it at that.
I'm Father Simmons. This is Father Freely. May we come in?
The thoughts for this character was a cryptid who lives in an abandoned church somewhere in the plains, inspired by the jackalope picture, and seems like a devout but cursed priest. However, he's a follower of some sort of nature god or force. It's just easier to help people when you look like something they know, hiding in plain sight, sort of. Haha. This was also an excuse to try out more furry-like designs, which I've been asked to do a lot of recently for commissions. Cats and rabbits are definitely my comfort zone at this point. I wanted Brother Quiet to look very friendly and kind in his pose, but still show off that he's still pious, so I did that quintessential prayer hands pose. You know, those ones that literally every aesthetic image and religious statue are doing when you look them up on Pinterest. Very Ethel Cain core. We love it. It's perfect. Unfortunately, this was a point where I realized that his pose was a bit wonky, perhaps, and a little too long. But you know what? He's a furry. We do what we want, like I said in the first design. It's fantasy. Plus, look at that tail. He's perfect, and we don't need to look at the odd proportions. It works in his favor to be really tall anyway, because he's not only a cryptid, so he needs to be weird and intimidating, but I also gave him very long robes. I wanted these robes to be quite pointy, but decided a more rounder edge would make the design continue to look friendlier. There's a lot of psychology around that fact, or at least I remember there being some psychology around that fact, that like rounded edges seem to be more friendly, and then the sharper edges and triangles are more off-putting. But I brought the weirdness back in with the torn edges to his robes and sashes, which was honestly really fun to do, and I have no idea why. He's definitely done some weird stuff, and the community around him has so many theories about it, not limited to arson, sleepwalking, and an inability to sew for some reason, perhaps because he's a fae creature and all of the needles have iron in them. I don't know if needles actually have iron in them, but they might. This was my favorite color palette to do, if I'm honest. The last two were very blue and cold, so I wanted to mess around with an autumn sort of vibe, especially since it's spooky season. I have no idea if calico rabbits actually exist, but he is certainly one of them, and I really enjoy them. These sort of markings and colorings are sort of inspired by Sleepy Grim, who is an amazing artist and does a lot of rabbit-based artwork. They're really cool, go check them out. At this point, I also realized that I had given him Furbolg or cow adjacent features instead of bunny features, so I had to quickly rectify that. RIP. This whole section is going to be me messing around with the colors and overlaying textures, which comes from the same artist that I got all the finishing touches brushes from, which is Bunabi. You should also check them out. A lot of their brushes are free at this point, but you might want to go get those before they stop being free. I wanted a texture that has a little more nature in it rather than something religious, and I think it worked out really well. On top of that texture, I brought in the eye shape of the aspen trees from this image and ended off making his sashes look like they had actual trees on them as well. Very off-putting. We love to see it. Thanks for getting all the way through. Hopefully all these cryptids put you in a nice spooky mood. I also want to take this time to thank you for 3,000 subscribers. With everyone's help so far, I've been able to get monetized and start a little career for myself, which is really great. It's hard to get an industry job, and as a disabled person who can't work retail anymore, it's been really helpful. You guys are amazing, and you really help me stay motivated to make really cool art and even better videos. Some of you may know as well that I'm really into video games, and as a sort of hobby and side project to kind of upgrade my editing skills, I've created a second channel where I'm going to be posting a lot of long form content for video games, like lore and iceberg videos and video essays and that kind of a thing. It's called The Game Saint. You can find it down in the description below as well, and if you're interested in video games, go ahead and give it a follow. You can also find links to channel memberships, our Patreon, where you can get videos a couple days beforehand, as well as helping me make these character design videos and suggesting topics. You also get a little thank you at the end of each video. We also have an Etsy store, and practically all of my social media is down in the description below if you want to take a look at it. As per usual, if you like my content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And remember to not look in your attic. The ghost and I are having a meeting in a couple of minutes to try and figure out a couple pranks to do against the poltergeists and the goblins that live in the walls. Surely you understand. Thank you to Jacques, Herald of the Dark Roast, Meg, Exarch of the Golden Egg, High Artisan Anonymous B, Great Alpha Wolf Squilliam William, Nairuz, Seer of Rosy Mercy, Ghost, Infernal Collector of the Damned, Golden Paladin Court, Isabella, Redeemer of Bad Himbos, Keeper of the Lapin Warren, Robin, Most Royal of all the Rats, Ethereal Consort of House Vicarian, Fungal Sovereign Taz, Exalted Curator Wick, the Under-Elf of Delphinia, Paragon of Starlight, an impossible amount of rat babies, Divine Herald Jordan, Estrella, Sage of the Outer Realms, Wretched Sauce of House Worcestershire, Champion Pallypunk of the Immortal Valley, Taylor of Macabre Coney Livery, Eternal Apostle Austin, the Contingent of Fables, the Eminence of Light, Bunny, Exarch of the Ornate Tomb, Harley the Sanguinous, Grand Overlord Silas, Being of Exalted Sunlight, Delegate of Clan Latineurs, Eternal Consul Puja, High Magi Katie, the Herald of Wrens, Knight Susan of the Milkiest Order, Great Seer Clare, and Sir Matthew, Guardian of the Preserved Apiary.